Prussia was not just another vanished European state. For centuries, it was one of the main engines that shaped modern Germany. It began on the North European plain, far from the old imperial centers of Western Europe, and eventually became powerful enough to unite most German states under its leadership. Its story runs from medieval crusading orders, to disciplined armies, to royal ambition, to the creation of the German Empire in 1871. But Prussia also left behind a controversial reputation. To admirers, it represented efficiency, public service, and military professionalism. To critics, it symbolized militarism, authoritarianism, and reactionary politics. Understanding Prussia means understanding how a frontier territory became the core of a modern nation-state, and why the Allies formally erased it from the map in 1947. The name Prussia originally came from the Old Prussians, a Baltic people who lived along the southeastern coast of the Baltic Sea. They were not Germans, and they were not part of the later Prussian kingdom that would dominate German politics. In the 13th century, the region was conquered by the Teutonic Knights, a Catholic military order of German crusaders. Like other medieval military orders, the Teutonic Knights combined religious mission, armed conquest, and state building. Their rule brought German-speaking settlers into the area and created a monastic state that gradually transformed the region's language, culture, and political structure. This is one of the ironies of Prussian history. The state later seen as a symbol of German power took its name from a conquered Baltic people. By the early 1300s, the Teutonic Order had expanded its territory, including the conquest of Pomerelia and the important port city of Danzig in 1308. This gave the order access to valuable Baltic trade routes and strengthened its position as a regional power. Over time, immigration from central and western Germany Germanized much of the northern area, while parts of the south were influenced by Polish settlers from Masovia. The region became culturally mixed, contested, and strategically valuable. But the Teutonic Knights did not rule without resistance. Their power eventually clashed with Poland and local interests, leading to wars that reshaped the political map. In 1466, the Second Peace of Thorn divided Prussia into two parts, Western Royal Prussia, which became a province of Poland, and Eastern Prussia, which remained under the Teutonic Order but as a Polish fief. A decisive turning point came in 1525. The Protestant Reformation was spreading across Europe, challenging Catholic institutions and transforming politics. In Prussia, the Teutonic Order's lands were secularized, meaning they were converted from a religious military state into a hereditary duchy. This created the Duchy of Prussia, ruled by the Hohenzollern family. Although the duchy remained a fief of the Polish crown for more than a century, the shift was enormous. A crusader state had become a dynastic principality. The Teutonic Order moved its headquarters elsewhere, but the political future of Prussia now belonged increasingly to the Hohenzollerns. Their talent was not simply ruling what they had inherited. It was accumulating territory, defending it, and building institutions that could survive across scattered lands. The next major step was the Union of Brandenburg and the Duchy of Prussia in 1618. Brandenburg lay within the Holy Roman Empire, centered around Berlin, while the Duchy of Prussia lay farther east, outside the empire's boundaries. Under the Hohenzollerns, these territories were joined under one ruling house. This did not instantly create a powerful state. The lands were fragmented, vulnerable, and exposed to the devastation of the 30 Years' War. But fragmentation also shaped Prussia's political culture. Because the Hohenzollerns ruled disconnected territories, they needed stronger central administration, reliable taxation, and a disciplined army to hold everything together. The foundations of the later Prussian state were built from this need to survive in a dangerous European landscape. In 1701, the Hohenzollern ruler crowned himself king in Prussia, creating the Kingdom of Prussia. The wording mattered. Much of the Hohenzollern land still sat within the Holy Roman Empire, where only certain titles were politically acceptable, but Prussia itself lay outside imperial territory. The royal title gave the dynasty new prestige and announced that Prussia intended to compete among Europe's leading powers. Berlin became the kingdom's capital, replacing Königsberg as the political center of gravity. From this point forward, Prussia was no longer merely an eastern duchy tied to Brandenburg. It was a kingdom with ambitions. Its rulers would concentrate on administration, finance, and especially the army, turning a relatively small state into a major military and diplomatic actor. Prussia's rise depended heavily on its army. Unlike states with vast natural wealth or long-established imperial prestige, Prussia relied on organization. Its rulers built a system in which taxation, bureaucracy, and military service supported one another. The army was not just a tool of defense, it became the backbone of the state. This gave Prussia a reputation for discipline and efficiency, but it also strengthened the influence of the Junkers, the landed aristocracy of Eastern Prussia. Many Junkers served as officers and administrators, tying noble status to military leadership and loyalty to the crown. This relationship helped Prussia punch above its weight, but it also encouraged the conservative and militarized political culture later described as Prussianism. The ruler most associated with Prussia's great power status was Frederick the Great, who reigned from 1740 to 1786. Frederick inherited a highly organized military machine and used it boldly. Through wars, diplomacy, and administrative reform, he expanded Prussia's influence and forced Europe to treat it as a first-rank power. His reign showed both sides of the Prussian model. On one hand, he promoted efficient governance and presented himself as an enlightened monarch concerned with law and state service. On the other hand, his success rested on aggressive strategy and battlefield strength. Under Frederick, Prussia became a state that could challenge Austria, influence the balance of power, and prove that disciplined institutions could compensate for limited size and resources. After Napoleon's defeat, Europe's rulers met at the Congress of Vienna in 1814 and 1815 to redraw the continent. Prussia emerged with important new territories, including lands in the west such as the coal-rich Ruhr. This mattered because Prussia was no longer only an eastern military kingdom. It now possessed areas that would become central to industrial growth. Coal, steel, railways, and manufacturing gave Prussia economic weight to match its military tradition. The kingdom's geography also changed its political role. It now stretched across multiple German regions and became increasingly connected to the question of German unity. As the 19th century progressed, Prussia's power was not just about soldiers and kings, it was also about industry, infrastructure, and national politics. The central political question of 19th century German history was whether the many German states would unite, and if so, under whose leadership. Austria had long been the senior German power, but Prussia increasingly challenged that position. Its army, bureaucracy, and industrial base made it the natural leader of a northern German bloc. In 1867, after victory over Austria, Prussia became the core of the North German Confederation. This was not yet the German Empire, but it was a decisive step toward it. Prussia now dominated a federal structure that brought many German states under its military and political leadership. The old balance between Austria and Prussia had been broken, and the future of German unity would be shaped in Berlin. In 1871, after victory in the Franco-Prussian War, the German Empire was proclaimed. Prussia had achieved what earlier generations had only debated, the unification of most German states into a single empire. But this new Germany was heavily Prussian in structure and leadership. The Prussian king became the German emperor, Berlin became the imperial capital, and Prussian institutions deeply influenced the empire's army and politics. Yet Prussia's success also diluted its separate identity. The kingdom was so large and dominant within the empire that many elites increasingly identified as German rather than specifically Prussian. Prussia had forged Germany, but in doing so it partly disappeared into the larger national project it had created. The Prussian monarchy ended in 1918 during the German Revolution, alongside the other German monarchies defeated by World War I and domestic unrest. In its place came the Free State of Prussia within the Weimar Republic. On paper, Prussia remained a major German state. In practice, its old royal and military identity had been shaken. The Weimar period was unstable, marked by ideological conflict, economic crisis, and struggles over democratic legitimacy. In 1932, Chancellor Franz von Papen used an emergency decree to remove the elected Prussian government in what became known as the Prussian coup. This act transferred key powers to the central government and severely weakened Prussia's remaining autonomy. It was a crucial step in the erosion of federal democracy before Nazi rule. Under Nazi Germany, Prussia was effectively dismantled into regional party districts, though some Prussian ministries continued to exist in name. Hermann Göring remained minister-president of Prussia until the end of World War II, but the old state had lost meaningful independence. After 1945, the lands historically associated with Prussia were transformed again. Much of eastern Prussia and other former German eastern territories came under Polish and Soviet control, and most of the German population was expelled or fled by 1950. To the Allied powers, Prussia represented a historical source of German militarism and reaction. In 1947, they formally abolished it by decree. The state that had helped create Germany was declared extinct. Prussia's legacy remains complex because it was never only one thing. It was a frontier crusader inheritance, a dynastic project, a military monarchy, an administrative machine, an industrial power, and the architect of German unification. Its reputation for discipline and service influenced modern ideas of the state, but its association with militarism and authoritarian conservatism made it deeply controversial after 2 world wars. The term Prussian still evokes sharply different meanings depending on who uses it, efficiency to some, aggression to others. In the end, Prussia vanished from the map, but not from history. Its institutions, wars, ambitions, and contradictions helped shape Germany and Europe long after the name itself was abolished. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.